Hey everybody. Hey everybody. It's me, your favorite Terry O'Brien from your favorite Terry O'Brien based YouTube channel, coming to you live from the Terry Cave. Is that any good, the Terry Cave? I call it the Fat Cave, like the Bat Cave, but that's just me. Maybe that's too mean. I don't know. I'm getting a little furry there. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep the beard for the Beatles this weekend or not. Anyway, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter video tonight. I know I have to reach 4,000 hours viewed, but I'll try not to do it all in one video. But I do want to keep creating content on a regular basis, so everyone knows they can look forward to a Terry O'Brien video or two just about every day. Kind of in a lull here. This is your Wednesday night lull video, coming to you live, from, well, semi-live, recorded live. Anyway, here's a video for you. It'll be a little shorter tonight. If you listen carefully, you can hear my wife watching the Olympics in the background. I've watched about 6 minutes of the Olympics. Not my thing. All the ice skating and all that. I watched one ice skating match and saw the scores, and then like, how are they scoring? What didn't it just be like you got 10? You got 10 if you were really good, right? 9s were very good. 8.5 if you were like pretty good, and always a 4 from the Russian judge. Now it's like, I don't know, who says you'll never use algebra after high school? Because it's, I'm holding for laughter. Anyway, as I mentioned briefly before, it is Beatles week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 5 days till the 6th annual 5 days until the 6th annual Beatles Night Cape May Part 2. Part 1 was January 22nd. Went very well, of course. And we are at Cabanas. It's our second year at Cabanas. But we really, our roots are down in the boiler room at Congress Hall. I know I've given you some background on this, how I stole it from my friend Dave in Northampton, Massachusetts, where I'll be next weekend singing in that Beatles band, helping some people out. But it was the first 4 years as a band. We performed in the boiler room at Congress Hall. We had a great time there. We loved playing there. It sounded great. My man Brandon Smith down there on the sound always did right by us. Unfortunately, after the 4th year, some scheduling conflicts came up that we just couldn't find a way to get sort of around. So we made the move over to Cabanas. Those scheduling problems just could not be resolved. Sorry, I'm reading the notes. See? Notes help it go smoother. We made the move not without a lot of trepidation and apprehension. It's worked out very well for us at Cabanas so far, which I'm very happy about, because we've got the Beatles and the Billy Joel happening over there. But we were really, really grateful to Congress Hall and the Boiler Room for giving us our start over there. And hopefully we'll be back there again someday in some capacity. We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when. But I feel like there's going to be some Congress Hall in our future. Nothing I'm even speculating about, but I think we'll get something back in there at some point. I do have new Beatles Night T-shirts this year. I'm going to have 5 or 6 each from small up to 2X. They're going to sell for $20, and that's just about enough to cover the cost of the shirt and to allow me to pay the lovely and talented Leslie DeRose, who is going to be our support act on Sunday night. How that works is Leslie comes in, she kicks off the show about 6:45. She'll play till 7. We'll play our first set, and then she will play during our 3 set breaks. So at the rest of the evening, we might invite her up to sing on a few songs over the course of the evening. But Leslie's great. If you've been to past Beatles shows, you know, it started out as a Beatles open mic night where we would have literally dozens of people come in and play 1 or 2 songs either by themselves or with the band. That's how we learned our core group of like 50 songs. We're up to about 70 now, I think. And then they would sing their 2 songs. Then we moved to, once it just became a Beatles show, which I'll get into how that came about last week. Had to do with my brother deciding to leave the band. I miss you, Mike. Subscribe to my channel, would you? Be a pal? Be a sibling? Anyway, once we moved away from doing open mic shows, one of our first nights doing that, we noticed that between sets, the DJ was putting on like Disco Inferno and Stevie Wonder. We thought it was just a little bit incongruous. It's all great music, but we found it a little bit incongruous. So I just struck on the idea of we would have one different act play each set, one show open and then one different act on the set break, and then that started getting a little loosey-goosey. So I was like, no, we'll get one person this year. This is the first year we're doing that, and it's worked out. We had James Howell at the January show. He was great. People loved him. And then we have Lester Rose. Les played for me a bunch down at Elaine's last year. We met at karaoke 10 years ago up at Atkinson's, which is now a burnt-out shell of... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I just drove past it. Atkinson's is being built now up in Cape May Courthouse. At least the walls are going up. That was a fun place to do some karaoke back in the day. Anyway, I'm rambling now. So the T-shirts are to pay for the T-shirt and to help pay Leslie, who's coming out on Sunday night. Shirts are $20. Once they run out, they're out. But I think there's going to be about 30 of them or so. So there you go. Oh my gosh, look. That's Misty. You already met Xena. That's Misty. Whatever Misty does, she's doing it right now. But she's a pretty cat. Useless, but pretty. Anyway, I was hoping to have some news on the podcast tonight. The Cape May podcast I've been talking about for a while now. The wheels are still in motion on that. I really can't announce anything official, as I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple of the interested parties on whether or not it's going to move forward in the way I sort of envision it, or if we'll have to adjust and move on from there. But when, not if, but when we get that rolling, hopefully in the very near future, it's going to be, we will get it rolling. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a Cape May-centric show, hitting on lots of local topics, but we'll also veer into national news and pop culture here and there. I sort of envision, along with some of the great podcasts I'd recommended to you yesterday, I can see it sort of becoming almost our own little version of NPR's great Sunday morning shows like Prairie Home Companion and Wait, Don't Tell Me. I think it could very easily translate into a live setting. But well, first things first, we had to do our first recorded podcast, get that out there in the ether, see how it goes, and then we can go from there. But all the elements are sort of there potentially to make it a really great little local event that no one's doing. So no one steal my idea until I get around to doing it. Please. Anyway, you could venture into live performances with the live theater pieces and live music. If I just knew some actors and some bands, I might have, we'll see. I'll try to Google that, I guess. But sometime early next week, I should have some more definitive information on that. Until then, I'll just keep talking about it. The last will script is, sorry, this arm's getting tired. I'm going to switch to this hand. This is my offhand. Okay, well, that's actually not terrible. You got to keep it above. Anyway, the last will script is coming along nicely. That's going to be 5 actors playing 11 characters, and I'm only playing 1 character, so it's 4 actors playing 10 characters. So I really feel bad for those other actors. I only have 1 costume. All these other shows I've been doing, I wear 3 or 4 costumes now. It'd be nice to just wear 1 for once. I'll be putting the first few pages of the script up on my Patreon as a patrons-only post. Probably the first half dozen, 6 to 12 pages of that script will go up there. That'll be for patrons only. So if you would like early access to the script to get an idea what that show is going to be about, go ahead and sign up for my Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1 a month, and that's plenty. I'd be happy to take more, but $1 works for me. They all add up, and every one of them is deeply appreciated and go right to funding local creative arts through the vessel that is the muse you see before you and all the people sort of in my general orbit. So you're not just supporting me, you're supporting live theater, podcasts, bands, karaoke, Beatles, Billy. It's all goes into one big pot and goes out many smaller pots. Anyway, so please sign up for the Patreon. $1 a month, if that's what you can spare, that's what you can spare. But the script is coming along, and I'll actually be getting back to working on that script as soon as I'm done making this video, which is already longer than I thought. It says right here. Oh, there we go. Right around here. There's the timer. And I'm already at 10 minutes. I thought this would be 10 minutes already. Oh, wait, hold on. Visual aid. I misidentified the Robert Crace book I was reading last night. It is actually this one. I can't see what I'm filming right now, but I think that got it all in. This one is called L.A. Requiem. The one I showed last night was The Last Detective. They're all great, but I just thought I would show you the one I was actually reading. This one is kind of a Joe Pike origin story. If those words mean anything to you, then you know how cool that is. I think I'm going to read this one and then review it after the weekend and come back and give you sort of my first official book review here on the Terry N. O'Brien YouTube channel. I got to call it something else. Terry N. O'Brien's kind of lame. I just kind of used that because I had to use something to open the channel so my kids could start watching YouTube. And I think Terry O'Brien, Terrence O'Brien, I think they were all taken. So I got to, so if you can think of a name to call this channel, keep it clean. If you can think of a name to call this channel, please leave a comment. And comments are right down there, right in this area. Leave a comment, and I'll be happy to consider all comers. Let's see. The beard, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, L.A. Requiem is Joe Pike origin story. Lots of tragedy in there, but Joe Pike and Elvis Cole just... every time I read a Robert Crace novel, I want to be one of these guys, and I've tried my hardest to write my own Robert Crace. I call it an homage, but if Robert Crace ever read my stories, Dead and Breakfast, A Killer Read, and Mary Deathmas, there might be a minor lawsuit involved. But I think homage you can use in court, right? It's an homage. I'm not ripping it off. It's an homage. Anyway, highly recommend all the Robert Crace books. I want to thank one of my bestest buddies, Wendy Rodelico, for suggesting the Sue Grafton Alphabet series, the Kinsey Milhone books. I always found that I was always interested in those. But when I first sort of became aware of them, she was already up to like L. She was like the A is for alibi, B is for this. Once it got to like L, I was like, I'm a little far behind. So I always just sort of didn't pick them up for that reason. But since I've, discovered Robert Crace and devoured 13 Robert Crace stories, I think I could get into the Grafton series now. Sadly, she passed away before Z was completed. But I think that'll get out one day. I'm sure a writer of her prolific output and talent likely had at least some notes laying around. And, J.R.R. Tolkien and Michael Crichton both had books, or several books each, come out posthumously. That means after they died, for my dumb subscribers. I'm sure we'll get a Z is for something from her, picked up by maybe Kathy Scottolene, someone like that. Who's the other guy I'm thinking of? He used to write comic books. I can't think of his name. David something. Baldacci. I think he used to be a comic book writer. I could be mixing that up. There is a former comic book writer who's now a big mystery novelist. Anyway, somebody leave that in the comments below, too. Or maybe I'll Google it before we leave. Anyway, so thank you, Wendy. I will, this is book number 8 or 9 in the Crace. And it is Crace, not Cray. I called him Robert Cray for about 5 or 6 years, but it is Robert Crace, as I discovered, embarrassingly, talking to someone who knew more about Robert Crace than I did, and I thought there was only a couple of those people in the world, and that one of them was Robert Crace, but there you go. But I digress. Thank you, Wendy, for that recommendation. When I get through, this is number 8 or 9 out of 17. When I get through 17, which will take me about, 3 more days, I will try to jump on that Sue Grafton series. Thank you. And to my friend Darla Logue, she recommended Lawrence Block. Now, I knew the name, but I went on to Google and looked up his bibliography. That guy, apparently, since the moment he was born in 1958, has done nothing but write, because he's got what appeared to be several 100,000 writing credits in his bibliography, and he's written some movies. I know a Liam Neeson movie, Walk Among the Tombstones, from the last 5 years or so, was a Lawrence Block story. which I think starred Dan Stevens as the bad guy, and what a hell of a second act that guy is having. Dan Stevens started as, of course, the sort of foppish-ish Matthew Crawley on Downton Abbey, where he met his tragic end. I won't give any spoilers, but he did not make it to the end of that show because, wisely it turns out, he was worried about being typecast in those kind of roles. And then he struck out to make movies. And then I saw him in some really, really bad suspense thriller where he was a hitchhiker. Someone picks him up, and it was just really not in with the dancer, the Julianne Hough. God, the things that get stuck in here. And then, of course, he was in Beauty and the Beast as the Beast, and he was in the Man Who Invented Christmas about Charles Dickens and how he came up with the story behind Scrooge, which my friend Bob the Donut swears comes out next year. I thought it came out this year, but if it did, it was a blink and you miss it, which I don't understand how a movie like that didn't at least get a couple weeks in the theaters with Dan Stevens and Christopher Plummer as Scrooge, as he looks in his mind's eye kind of thing. So where was I? Yes, Lawrence Block, thank you. Dan Stevens also is in the really, really excellent FX TV show Legion, produced and written by the same guys who make the really, really excellent Fargo TV shows. Legion is actually based on an X-Men character from the comic books, the son of Professor S, but I won't say Professor X. But I shall say no more since I don't want to show off too much of my nerdy side. Speaking of comic book film adaptations, and this is going to be... I was nervous about this video tonight because I'm kind of veering into my first sort of controversial statement on this channel. Not my first controversial statement. If you ever read any of my 500 or so Undertow columns, you knew that sticking my foot in my mouth was one of my greatest abilities. But I'm going to try real careful to parse my way around this. We have the on my Twitter, where I'm a little freakier than I am on the Facebook is just for hi, here's my gigs. The Twitter I get a little bit more loosey-goosey. Anyway, I have set here's my Twitter statement for the week. The Black Panther is the Kobayashi Maru for Caucasian people. Now let me explain that to you. First, if you don't know what the Kobayashi Maru is, it is the test that every Starfleet captain must endure before becoming a Starfleet captain. Of course, in the Star Trek series, which I think very famously in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, William Shatner, who of course is Captain Kirk, is outed as the only person to have ever beaten the Kobayashi Maru scenario. And how did he do it? Well, of course, he cheated. But the Kobayashi Maru is a scenario in which there is no positive outcome for the captain. And Black Panther feels like a little bit like this to me for Caucasian people. Now, I want to explain this as from a social media standpoint I'm talking. The very, very heightened reality of social media. And I think they used to call it the blogosphere. I think in the real world, it's just going to be a movie. I think people are going to go see it. I think it's going to be a pretty good to really good movie. Maybe a top 5 Marvel movie. I'm a big Marvel Comics nerd from the 70s and 80s. Maybe it's the best Marvel movie. I really and sincerely hope it is, because I love those movies. I love those characters. I grew up reading them. And I want them all to be great. Not all of them are, but most of them are at least pretty good. But in the area of social media, God, this video is getting longer by the second. That's what she said. Sorry, lots of office this week. But in the social media world, where there are very, very few gray areas, it's kind of all about ownership. White guilt and cultural appropriation are two of the hugest social media talking points in the last year, especially since last November when the new president was elected, which I'm not getting into. But from the sort of African-American black side of social media, there's lots of posts and tweets out there about if you're white, don't even think about wearing Black Panther costumes for Halloween. There are other more extreme examples of that line of thinking that I won't get into on this sort of family-friendly-ish YouTube channel. There's also a lot of really, really nervous white people out there on social media who are sort of buying into this and feeding into it without delving too deeply. So I'm getting a little Sheena sweat here just talking about this stuff, but without diving too deeply into racial politics, which I'm not schooled on, I just feel like this is the Kobayashi Maru. I don't think there's any way this movie, no matter how well it does or doesn't do, I really want it to just be a movie, but I don't think it's going to just be a movie, which I get. I get it. But if it does well, I think Caucasians are going to be accused of appropriating African culture, even though Wakanda isn't real. It's a fictional, made-up Marvel place, but I get it. I get it. Representation absolutely matters. But if it does poorly, it'll be white people being racist, not going to see it, even though huge sections of black social media are telling people not to go see it, and that's been going on for some weeks now. Do you see the sweat breaking out? Anyway, I just wanted to broach this, and this is all through the prism, the very narrow prism of social media, where racial and identity politics are practically all that exist. I'm not Terry. I'm cis white male, middle-aged Terry, part of the patriarchy. I'm not going to go any further than that. But if you wade through Twitter and some of the other social networks for a while, you'll see what I'm talking about. Personally, I can't wait to see Black Panther. I hope Black Panther is great. We're going to try to go see it tomorrow night, if possible, most likely after the weekend, because I have an extra gig this weekend, so I might have the disposable income to burn a little bit of it on a movie. But if you're not into the social media, if you're not on the Twitter, maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about, and this all just sounds ridiculous. But I have long been an observer of sort of media in general, and social media, and there's just a growing, this wave has been growing for a while now, where I really just wanted Black Panther to be a movie. It's not going to be just a movie, and I don't think there's any way by the end of Saturday night, Sunday morning, that is just a movie. But we shall see, and if it's we'll see what happens. Oh gosh, see, I'm still sweating now. So anyway, I'll try to dive a little bit more into this in a future, maybe comic book themed video. Marvel Comics has sort of gone down this SJW, which stands for Social Justice Warrior, rabbit hole in the last 3 to 5 years. And there's no easy way to explain it other than I use this example with my kids. So you go see Black Panther this weekend, or if you saw Captain America Civil War, or you go see an Avengers movie, or go see the one Avengers Infinity War coming out in May, and your 6-year-old son or daughter or niece or nephew or grandchild loves that movie. Okay, great. You're building a future Marvel Comics fan. And that child says, Daddy, I want to read some Marvel Comics. Well, okay, sweetie, let's go to the local comic store. For us in Cape May, the closest comic store is at the Hamilton Mall. It's a pretty good store, too. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a good store. So, Daddy, I want to read, I really liked Iron Man. Can we get an Iron Man comic book? Well, sure, and you pick up an Iron Man comic book. Iron Man currently is not Tony Stark, but a 13-year-old black girl genius named Riri Williams, which is fine, but that is not Tony Stark. Well, okay, let's try Thor. So you pick up a Thor comic. Thor is currently a woman. Okay, that's fine. It's not what you're getting in the movie, but it's fine. Okay, then how about a Captain America comic? Okay, and if you picked up a Captain America comic between 2015 and 2017, Captain America was one of two things. He was a black man named Sam Wilson, who is actually the Falcon, which is great, but Sam Wilson's the Falcon. Sam Wilson's not Captain America. Or Captain America was a Nazi, an agent of Hydra, which in the movies, is basically just a stand-in for the Nazi party. Man, I'm sweating again, hitting on these topics. So anyway, the characters in that goes on. Spider-Man is still Peter Parker, but Peter Parker is now more like Tony Stark. And there's a black Hispanic Spider-Man named Miles Morales. It's all great, but it's not what you're getting in the movies. And that's just sort of my way of explaining the SJW-ization of Marvel over the last 3 years is reflected in the books, not in the movies. And that, can be confusing for someone. So, it's my fear that the movie's going to sort of follow the books eventually. And, but I think Disney, which owns Marvel, is smart enough to keep these movies as broadly appealing as possible, as long as they keep making $500 million to $1 billion each, which I hope they all do. And but if they don't, that's fine too. We'll see what happens. This whole I'm getting really sweaty over the last 10 minutes. But this whole previous bit may out me as a bit of what they call a comics gator, which is comics gate. I am a comics gator, a person of the comics gate movement, I guess, which is this whole Twitter and YouTube thing going on right now between comic book customers and comic book creators who keep antagonizing each other as comic book sales dwindle down to zero. If you care nothing about comic books, you could have turned this off 10 minutes ago. So I'm done sweating now. I'll stop hitting on those topics that make me nervous. So do you tune into this channel for controversial topics like that, or should I just keep it focused on promoting my upcoming theatrical and creative projects? Tell me what you think about the idea of the occasional audiobook posts on this channel, or that could be a whole separate thing. Sort of make it its own thing, or keep it all under the umbrella of Terry N. O'Brien, or as I'm called on the interwebs, Terry No Bryan, which I get. Please feel free. If you want to leave a comment, do it on the YouTube page. They're all sort of on the same place. And I'm going to really do my best to reply to every comment I get. I need that 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of consumed content. I'm currently at 24 subscribers and 8 hours of content. It was 12 hours of viewed content yesterday. I somehow lost 4 hours out there. Did some of you unwatch my videos? Because that's... Anyway, please feel free to share these among your friends who might enjoy it on the Facebook, on the Twitter. It is all appreciated. Remember, Friday night is karaoke at the Rio Station. Sunday is Beatles night. Hit up the Patreon. That's right down on the page here if you want to subscribe to support the creative arts in Cape May. And now, my catchphrase, you can see right there, it says I need to come up with a goodbye catchphrase, which for right now is going to be catchphrase.